Welcome to Underdog Off-Road's Paynes Find adventure. We're getting on in wildflower season a bit, and we wanted to squeeze in one more trip. We were less organised than usual, and we didn't really get a plan together at this point, as the decision to go was a bit last minute. So we started off by aimlessly wandering through the bush. This led to both many dead ends and gates. So our first Underdog top tip of the video is to develop a plan before going somewhere new. At this point, I cranked up the phone signal booster to reach out to Google Maps, and we found that there was a mountain nearby. With this piece of information, we headed over to visit Mount Singleton. This turned out to be on someone's farmstay property. The bloke who runs the joint was happy enough to let us in, and from the homestead we headed over to Mount Singleton. The flowers are blooming all over the place, so it is worth taking the time to stop and check them out. The track is accessible by car all the way to the top of the mountain. I would rate the difficulty of the track as suitable for a beginner in a stock four-wheel drive or somebody with an intermediate experience in a soft roader. There are some small holes and some small rocks that you need to drive around if you're in a lower vehicle, but there's nothing that would bother a four-wheel drive in any way. And even the steepest, loosest hills still had enough traction for our two-wheel drive Falcons to make it up comfortably.
I'll drive the Camry here.
Yeah, the average Camry driver. Maybe not.
Oh, well, basically anything's beyond the average Camry driver.
Like reverse parking.
The main things you're looking out for in these situations are keeping the sides of your tyres away from sharp rocks, just to avoid punctures. Try and look for the grippier surfaces and avoid the looser stuff, and try and keep your tyres out of the holes. You also want to be maintaining a steady throttle, as giving the boot full will lose traction. And if you find yourself losing traction, just back off a bit. And if overall you're struggling, let some air out of the tyres, and there's no reason you should be struggling for traction. Both on the way up and the way down, we did pass several convoys of cars. The track is just wide enough to pass. So as with any track, make sure you tackle it at a sensible speed with the attitude that there could be an oncoming vehicle around any one of these blind bends. There are very few situations off-road where you need to use momentum to get through, and there certainly aren't any around here.
We have an oncoming vehicle.
As you head up the mountain, you do get a number of viewing opportunities along the way. The top of the mountain had various comm towers and plenty of places for views and to take a lunch break. I'd have to say the way back down really lets you take in the view a bit better. While heading down a long hill, you don't want to be riding the brakes the entire way, as they will build up a lot of heat by the time you reach the bottom. In most four-wheel drives, and in most manuals, the gearing is low enough that just by leaving it in a low gear, the engine will slow you down enough not to touch the brakes at all. However, in these Auto Falcons, they have ridiculously tall first gears, so that is not the case. In these vehicles, you are best off putting it in neutral for the slow parts, as this stops the engine trying to drive off and accelerate you even more than the downhill is trying to do. And then once you're in neutral, you are going to have to use the brakes. Try not to use them continuously, just dab them on and off a bit and give them time to cool. Even if it's just a few seconds at a time, it does help. Coming up next is a short uphill section while heading down the mountain that would have to be the toughest part of the track. Don't let this bit scare you off, as there is a perfectly good track around, which most of the traffic would take. We just chose to take this turn off. However, this is a good opportunity to show the different lines that you take while driving different vehicles. First up is Chris and the Falcon. Due to being two-wheel drive, the Falcon's main goal is to keep the rear tyres out of the looser rocks and try not to hit any larger rock steps, as these two things will cause the two-wheel drive to struggle for traction. This line does cause the car to lift a front wheel, which really doesn't matter because the front wheels aren't doing anything anyway. The Falcon also has a diff locker. Generally speaking, cars with diff lockers don't mind lifting wheels. Next up is Mike's all-wheel drive Outback. This car does not have a diff lock, so will be rendered powerless if he lifts a wheel where Chris did. He is more than experienced enough to know this, and he knows which line he has to take. Being all-wheel drive, it can handle those loose rocks far better and doesn't mind hitting a small rock step. So Mike obviously sticks further to the left.
Rather moist in here. Very green.
With the mountain conquered, we headed over to see what else this property had to offer. The shearing shed. Maybe it's over there.
I think it's that one.
Watch your pump. Where you leave your cans. Anybody home? Ah, that's exactly what Mike needed earlier. Mike, we found your toilet. Nearly made it. Got matching camp chairs. These guys know how to live. Some days it's nice to sit back and watch a generator. Drinking water with Hornet. Keeps getting better. We wanted to go to the shearing shed, but there is a gate. Here it is. It's over there.
Stepping over the fence though.
The shearing shed. The machinery is always good. Some poison. Yeah, if you need any wool.
I'm very good at breaking those.
Can you get it going? Can you get it going?
It's got fuel.
I got a jerry can. Ground's a bit hollow. Ground's got a hollow sound to it, and there's a hole in it.
Yeah. Bit like that.
Very cool.
You did that on film?
I did.
Nice.
More cans. Always a little eerie when places are just abandoned without packing up or finishing the job. So needless to say, we're not camping here tonight. Time to do some kilometres.
We're staying on top of millions of dollars. Potentially.
Quartz reef. This is quartz, and it was once under the water as a reef. Probably.
Look at gold!
Oh, we found gold.
I'm joking. It's inside.
Camp contains multiple forms of surprising animals.
Dude, I just squeezed it. Went, ooh, that's cold. I've never seen one like that before.
And a decent sunset. Sunrise wasn't bad either. time to find some breakfast. These little fellas taste exactly like snow peas. We then headed into Carrara Rangeland Park and climbed the very first mountain that we saw. There was yet another tower on top of this mountain, and this was built with the good old Aussie use what you got at the time build attitude. The main purpose of this journey, of course, was to fix the fallen sign that was on top.
The ants seem to like it. Oops.
Okay. We then said goodbye to the mountain and headed on further south down the track. There was certainly nothing challenging about this particular track, but it was good being out in the Aussie bush with the ever-changing scenery. You'd have fields of yellow flowers, fields of blue flowers, and so on. Needless to say, we took many stops just to have a closer look and see what each flower actually was. It's the right spot. Along the way were various wells and mine shafts. It is. Not sure what's happening here.
long as you know what the water's clean. Little steady bushes here, so
It must just be because the station is kind of wells.
After monitoring a spider, we decided it was time to look for camp.
The spider is on the move, would you believe? Wait for us to leave. Now it's climbed up all the way to the top of its tree and it's walking along the tree. That's cool. Looks like it's strengthening its web or something. It looks like it's building a new one. Yep, that's exactly what it's doing. And that was a forward driving section too. Yeah, it's a fun little bit.
These kind of roads are always going to be bumpy. Lowering tyre pressures does help a great deal, but there's only so much you can do, so it's always going to be slow going. We then headed off into the woods on a more four-wheel drive style track just to keep Mark happy, and also to look for a camp for the night. Always good to get somewhere a bit off the track, away from other people, so you don't have any passing traffic. Nothing beats some quality good campfire stories while somewhere as beautiful as this. So everybody, the parts manual for a ballast regulator, which I wrote myself. For those uneducated in rail maintenance, a ballast regulator ploughs and sweeps the ballast on railways to create tidy stone formations for sleepers and rail to sit upon up high out of the mud. The following day, we headed further west to see what we could find. We ended up finding a breakaway. This rocky formation had a few caves and was worth a look at. John Forest Lookout is worth the walk. This was a survey point set up by the first Premier of WA and offers a good view of the surrounding country. Mike's main goal of this trip was to do some real four-wheel driving, so we found this sign which made him very happy, despite it being one of the easiest tracks of the trip. Our next stop was this old homestead. Always good seeing old places like this. The warning signs are about asbestos, so be mindful. And there's a cool vehicle if anyone wants to do a restoration project. From here we started heading on out, of course making multiple stops to look at the flowers, such as this entanglement of fringe lily and flannel bush. The Geraldton wax became very difficult to film in the wind. We are of course quite close to Geraldton at this point. I've always associated Geraldton with wind, maybe it's just me. The final stop of this trip was the watershed. If you too want to build your very own watershed, make sure you slope the roof inwards to catch the rain, and do a very good job bolting it down really well, as the force from the wind blowing underneath would be immense over such a large area. This sums up our trip. Until next time.